George of the jungle, strong as he can be.
Okay, and welcome back to thecreditjungle.com. This is George Anderson, and this is going to be part 2 of temporary buy downs. And I have zoomed this in a little bit. I don't know if on the first screen you can see the numbers too well, but that's okay. This is the one that it's important that we have the numbers and figure this out. So what does a buy down cost, and how do you come up with that number? Okay, so what I'm doing here is I've got a loan amount at $500,000. And let's just assume that rates are at 7%. It's kind of funny. I go look through old loan disclosures or different stuff that came out from FHA or a servicing bulletin from Fannie Mae. And if it references an interest rate, sometimes it's funny to go back and kind of go, oh, I can tell when that bulletin came out because the rates were this or whatever. So don't get stuck on what the interest rate is, but just understand the mechanics of how we get the number here. But anyway, so if we're using this principal and interest, we don't care what the taxes and the insurance are, or the mortgage insurance for that fact. It's just going to be added on. Okay, whatever that number is here, we're going to add on taxes and insurance. Add it on here, add it on here. These are the numbers that are going to be the constants that we determine the cost of the buy down. So at 7%, the principal and interest payment is $33.27. To buy it down 2% for the first year gives you, and I'm looking at my cheat sheet here, you're going to save $642 per month, okay? $642 a month, and how many months? Well, it's going to be for the first year, you're going to be sending in a payment that basically feels like a 5% payment. This $642 times 12 here, okay, which is $77.04. That was money that was built into the sales price of your home, okay? So, you know, if you didn't ask for a 2-1 buy down, you probably could have got a lower price on the home, okay? So there's not like there's magic money out there that somehow a 2-1 buy down just happens without anybody paying for it. The second year, your interest rate is $329, or your payment is $329 a month lower for 12 months. And that, for 12 months, that is $39.48. Okay, so you got 12 months for year one that your payment is lower by $642 a month. That's significant. That's significant. Now you still have to qualify with your payment up here, but this certainly helps. Okay, especially if you're a first-time home buyer. There are so many expenses that you run into going into your first home. I mean, yard care stuff, window coverings. I mean, there's expenses, whether it's a brand new home or an existing home. Okay, you're going to run into these things. So the total cost on this, the amount of money that we would have to have the seller pay for that, is the total, which is $11,652. That amount of money has to be escrowed and set aside for the servicing lender so that they can subsidize your payment, $642 a month for the first year and $329 a month for the second year. Well, you don't know what that exact number is at the time that you're writing the offer because A, the loan's not locked, and B, depending on the appraisal, if it comes in and you've got to adjust your loan amount, if the loan amount adjusts a little bit, and then you lock it, you have to wait till you come up with that final number. And so there's always going to be an addendum that has to be done at the end that says, okay, now that we're locked and we know the numbers, here's what it is. And it has to be, I rounded up on these principal and interest payments. It has to be right down to the penny. So this is how you come up with this. Now, just so that you know, what if the seller doesn't have that much money? The seller says, look, I'm willing to help you out, but I mean, I ain't building no $11,600 and some odd dollars. I can't, maybe you can't add it into the sales price because the home wouldn't appraise, and the seller doesn't want to reduce the amount of money that they're getting from the closing by $11,000. One of the other options is you don't have to do this first year, it doesn't have to be bought down 2%. You can do what's called a 1-to-0 buy down, where you're only buying down the interest rate 1% for the first year. So that would only be $3,948, and you would, for year one, would take your payment down by $329 a month for the first year only, and that's less than 1% of the loan amount. And that's not too tough of a concession to get from a seller to be able to do that. Just so that you know the percentages on it. To be able to get this total amount of money here, you're actually getting 2 1/3%. That represents 2 1/3% of the loan amount. Typically, when you're negotiating closing costs, you're asking for your concessions based on the sales price. So the sales price of this home, could be 5 1/4, 550, or whatever, but you have to make sure that the amount that you're getting in the seller concessions, if you're doing a 2-1 buy down, you've got to at least get that much. So when I'm sitting there kind of rounding off and running numbers with an agent, if they're out there doing this, and said, yeah, the seller said that they'll pay for a 2-1 buy down. Okay, great. How much is that going to cost? Okay, well, what's the purchase price of the home? What's the amount that they're going to put down, and what's the loan amount? And then I do a quick calculation based on the rate, and I'll say, okay, tell you what, let's grab $12,000 towards the buy down. And then we ask for that much from the seller, and then we try to, get our loan locked accordingly and make everything work out on that. But if all you wanted was a first-year buy down, the cost of that's much more affordable. That's only 0.79% of the loan amount. So if the seller was going to pay 2%, say, in closing costs, and that's it, that's all the seller was going to kick in, well, you would have a little less than 1% that could be used to buy the rate down temporarily for 1 year. And then on this one, if we're looking at $10,000 in concessions, you'd have another, $6,100 roughly that you could apply towards closing costs. You could take care of a good chunk of the closing costs, plus get a 1-year buy down. If you're just getting a couple percent on that. So just something to think about on there. Now, for the math people out there, because there's always a few of them, and I love the math of this, okay? This is a logarithmic function, okay? And what that means is that there's not a straight line relationship between the interest rate, okay? So if we were starting at 6, if we were going 654, the cost of the buy down as a percentage would be less, okay? So as interest rates go down, the percentage of the money that you need to grab to do a 2-1 buy down also goes down. On the converse, if the rates go up, and let's just say if we saw rates at 8% sometime, which in my career we have seen it several times. Probably the last time we were in the 8s was about year 2000. But the cost of this buy down could very well, the total cost of a 2-1 buy down could be 2.5%, maybe more, and this would probably be 1%. So you've got to factor in where the rates are at the time that you're doing it. You can't just assume that if I grab 2.5% total or 2% total or 2.25%, you can't assume that that's going to cover the buy down until you actually know your loan amount and until you lock your rate. But this can be a great way to make the house payment feel more affordable while you're kind of getting used to that concept of home ownership. And that's how we do it, folks. So anyway, if you have any questions, feel free to push button and get Mortgage Professional. This is George Anderson. This is thecreditjungle.com. There's a lot of cool videos on here. You can go within the channel and you can search just about anything that you want. And I know that I'm approaching 200 videos, and I may not have every subject on there, but if there's one that you want some information on, send it on over. That's how I get a lot of the stuff. I'll have borrowers ask me questions, and I'm going, oh, I know the answer to that, and oh, I have not made a video on it. So this is just real world stuff that we're dealing with from day to day, and hopefully it's helpful for you to make a decision about your financing, because for most people, purchasing a home is going to be the biggest investment and the biggest liability that you'll ever have. So we hope to talk to you soon, and you have a wonderful day. Take care.